Dungeons and Dragons Adventurer. Issue 13. Time to move on to issue 13, where it looks like we're going to be meeting some barbarians. Let's just open it up and find out. So as you can see, there's actually quite a lot more here than just the basic issue, which we'll get to in a minute. But first I have to point something out, as always. Can you spot what's wrong with this cover? Maybe if I switch through covers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. That's right, it should be red, and yet it's gold. I have no idea why, because when we get to the next issue, it's gold like it should be. And if we keep going, you'll see green, blue, red, gold, green, blue. So no idea how they've done this, but they just have it. It's just wrong. But enough about that for now. Let's just start where we always do, with the dice. And these ones come with a bag, in a bag. Oh, that one's a bit stuck to the bag, but you can see we've got some nice blue glittery dice here. Kind of icy dice, almost. And a nice little blue D&D adventure bag. To go with our red one, although the red one came with a massive D20 and this came with just a set of regular dice. So nice to get the bag. Shame about just regular icy dice. Unless it's a frost adventure, useless, worthless, boring. Gone. Anyway, moving on from the dice bashing as always and getting on with the issue. So you can see from the little intro page, we're going to have our barbarian character introduced, along with some character sheets for him, including a dungeon map as well, and some dice. So obviously the character overview's got all about the barbarian. Looks like we've got some curses, which could be cool. We're going back to time. And also nice to see character creation 11, because I didn't realise it at the time until I was putting the issue away that actually the age in the last issue was overview 12, whereas languages, the previous one, was overview 10. But they just missed out 11. It's coming into play now. Why they couldn't just have put age as number 11 and this issue's at number 12, I don't know. Maybe they didn't have time to do it. But speaking of time, the passage of time, part 2. Use time to your advantage. And you find out in Forgotten Realms, a week is actually 10 days, called a 10 day. And each month is only 3 weeks, so you still get 30 days in a month. You're going to see on the back page though, all of this is pretty much just reused from previous issues. So this whole travel pace section about how fast you can move, moving across difficult terrain, exhaustion if you travel for too long. It's all just reused, not from a previous time section, but the previous movement section when it had all of that. And it's got about you might find encounters, but you might not find encounters, which I think actually came from the previous DM section, because I know I've read that before. Just this in-game time here is the only new bit about the box, really, about tracking the time, as it might make a difference during the game. If we move on now, we now get curses as a part of the spellcasting section. It does have a top tip: beware of cursed magical items, which we have covered before, but now this is going to deal with curses from a magical casting sort of perspective. They can be long, short, strong, weak, cast by bestow curse, removed by remove curse. Even warlocks can hex their enemies when we finally meet a warlock. There's also the monstrous curses on the back. Mentioned a bit, you've got Lamias, you've got the mummies, obviously we've seen them before. And you've got lycanthropy, if you get bitten by a werewolf, or were-rat, or were-bear, or were-anything. And curses in action is nice enough to mention about Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft. I did have one Ravenloft module years ago. A lot of that vampire, undead, gothic sort of stuff, as far as I remember. Exploring ancient castles and having butlers appearing out of nowhere to serve you floating chandelier tea or something like that. But let's become a better role player. And this is just part of the character creation, but just talking how to role play as your character a little bit, rather than just, you know, exploring dungeons, slaying monsters. You also want to role play a little bit. So, you know, it talks about having your character quirks, which gives you a way to actually act in your character. Like if they've got a chip on their shoulder, or did they grow up a beaten child and they want to get revenge, or were they rich and pompous, or anything such as that, which goes in with the motivation as well. You've got backstory from your motivation, but then also what are you trying to do, how does your backstory link to it, what tactics do you use, and be curious, ask a lot of questions. Whenever you meet people, ask the NPC questions, get interacting, watch them, study them, stalk them, whatever you want to do. But most of the pre-generated characters do have all of this sort of stuff listed on their sheet, which will help to roleplay them. And then I think it just says for new ones you create, just put in stuff that you think would apply. But mainly it's probably going to be putting stuff that's easy for you to do or remember. That's just with the Barbarian, where the easiest thing is to just make them a dumb meathead who just likes to hit things. mentally barbarians. Well, that's barbarian mentality. They're not all the same, but a lot of them do like to hit stuff. And it does say about mostly you should just base them on their rage rather than where they came from. It also talks about Drax the Destroyer and Conan the Barbarian as good examples of barbarians in literature and fantasy. Mostly they're primal, just use their instincts, rely on that. Blood in their veins, there's steel they hold in their hands, that's all they need to worry about. And rage. We should discuss that here in Barbarian features, first level. So it's going to go on about rage because that's the feature they start with, and anything else they're going to have. Rage. The angle felt by a normal person resembles the rage of a barbarian. In the same way, a gentle breeze is akin to a furious thunderstorm. The important thing to note about the barbarians is when they rage, they get all these bonuses, so advantages on strength checks and strength saving throws. Attacks with strength modifiers get +2 for the damage roll. And they're also, a better thing, resistant to bludgeoning, piercing and slashing damage. Meaning that's perfect for just raging and rushing into combat. It lasts for a minute, unless they're knocked out or their turn ends and they haven't attacked or taken any damage. It does give you a warning. While it makes them more powerful, it does make doing simple tasks difficult. So if they multi-class, they wouldn't be able to cast spells. It also says you can only rage twice. I'm assuming that's just for first level, and then as it levels up, they'll gain more rage uses. However, they've also got this unarmored defense, which is if they're not wearing any armor. I didn't mention before, what's a rage, they can't be wearing heavy armor. But if they're wearing no armor, their armor class is actually based on their dexterity modifier plus their constitution modifier, as well as being able to use a shield and still benefit from that. So they can have no armor, run around, rage for half damage anyway, and just have an increased AC just by being really constitutional. And then at second level, they get even more skills to use. Obviously they get their D12 hit points. They also get danger sense, so it gives them an advantage on any dexterity saving throws as long as they can see what's coming. Well, see, but also they'll be able to hear and react, so they can't be deafened, blinded or incapacitated. And then yeah, they get advantage on dexterity saving throws against traps, spells, anything. Their other extra feat isn't more raging, but it's a reckless attack, which is similar to rage. Essentially though, a barbarian can decide they're going to reckless attack, and the first attack on the turn they actually get advantage on rolls as long as it's a strength based weapon they're using. However, the reason it's called reckless is because all enemies are going to get advantage attacking the barbarian that turn. So it just warn you, use it wisely. If you're surrounded by enemies, it's probably not a good chance unless you're desperate. Then we'll get to lore, which is less barbarian, more magical. Talk about the weave, which we've heard of before, but that's obviously what gives us all the magic in the Forgotten Realms. A bit of lore here, you can't always access it. There are some dead magic zones where you can't cast spells, magic items don't work. And there was a thing called the Spell Plague, where for 8 years there was no magic at all. And they blamed the goddess Mystra. We're following all the lore to do with Saloon and Shari and Karsus sacrificed herself to preserve the weave. And then Mystra was reborn as Mystra. And the Spell Plague they talked about before was actually Shah had assassinated Mystra to attempt to seize the entire realm of magic for herself, and then Mystra returned and eventually repaired it. And we get a nice bit of lore here about magic items and how they're made by weaving the weave to the items to get what you want, and why some of them need attunement and some of them don't. Continuing with magic and this sort of thing, I'll talk about the gods. We now get the Pantheon of gods lore as well. Hopefully there's a list over the page, because it does say choose the list you want. The characters can choose a single deity to serve, gods they pray to, gods who are revered in the campaign, and obviously acolytes as well should match their character to the deity's beliefs, like we've already done with Razorgar. And here we have it, the full list. It says at least 30, it looks like more here, but all the deities as well as their domains, their symbols and their alignment. So now do we finally have Ilmater, god of Embrance, who can only be the life domain, and is lawful good, which I feel like fits with Razorgar. Or at least it would do if she'd come with a natural built-in alignment, but we choose it for the character sheet. Moving on with our characters then. Chasing Shadows. Time to move to our encounter this issue. As per normal, this is for the Dungeon Master's eyes, so if you're planning on playing the encounter, just follow the chapters to skip ahead to the next part. But at the moment we've got the Hamlet of Trentor, and Visera, a nefarious necromancer, is basically sending undead to terrorize the village, turns up and sells charms, and then anyone doesn't buy the charms, she sends the undead back to get them. And then rinse, repeat. But will our heroes be able to defend the Hamlet? We shall see. There's a fair bit to unpack here and quite a few checks to be made. It starts off with begin the encounter. After travelling on the high road, we arrive at Trentor. To start with, I was like, oh, it's another one. It hasn't followed on because it just goes on to talk about meeting the Dragonborn Visera, who offers the magic charms, 20 gold pieces each. And this is where the checks start, because you can use a DC 10 Intelligence Arcana check, and you can learn that they're not actually magical or to detect magic. But basically she just sells non-magical stuff and uses the undead to specifically target people who don't buy them, as mentioned before. However, then you get to Blind Basilican. You can spend some money to do stuff, but if you have Aura and Grey Wind from the party from the last encounter, he'll have to pay for the lodging. So this is the first time now, apart from the two-parter, which I don't think officially counts because it was basically the same adventure, but now they've actually had one adventure lead on to the other. Hurrah! Maybe that will continue. A few less one-shots here and there. But then you could play it as a one-shot, you just wouldn't have him there. And either way, the daughter runs out, says, oh, the hero's weak, you guys should fight. He asks you to do it. You need to go talk to the hero. You get another check, Charisma Persuasion, to get the weakened halfling to not join in the combat. If you fail, she will join the combat. And at night, 4 shadows appear, and they're only going to attempt to attack any characters to complete darkness. Otherwise, they're going to attempt to go into 2 or 3 hovels. And you've got another check for intelligence, investigation, to work out that they're only going into ones that don't have the magic charm on the door. So anyway, once you know the shadow encounters, you then get to confront Visera if you work it out, who basically just doesn't want to engage the party, wants to run away and threatens you with 2 shadows, who she will use if you confront her. And then if she's not confronted or escapes, she'll travel to Neverwinter. And as she says, you can choose to adapt in a future encounter. So while she's not going to be directly in future stuff, when we get to Neverwinter, which it looks like we're heading for, you can actually stick with future encounters if she gets away. So again, now the magazine's letting you include stuff like linking the encounters and adventures all together. Unless the party annihilate her, then you don't have to worry about her. Although, yeah, she saw the Green Dragonborn practice scary shadow magic. Green Dragonborn. Very odd green to me. But what I do like, when you end the adventure, you get all your rewards if you did it, and then you can continue north to Neverwinter to score Aura to his destination. Or if you receive the map for the Tomb of the Elven Hero, you can also go for that. And he says you want to do it. If you say yes, you go there, and he'll remain at the inn. So does that mean next issue we're going to have a split encounter with 2 different things to do? I don't think so. I think more likely next issue will just have the tomb, and it's either a one-shot or it's a continued story, depending on how you end this. But I do like that now they're linking all the encounters together slowly, and I've got the option to link more if she escapes and runs away. But anyway, let's talk about these stat blocks. So first up, we've got Harriet Littlefoot, injured halfling. Looks alright. I've just got some questions about it. It does say she normally has the stats of a veteran, but she's strength drained in a minute, which is why she's there. However, because she's wearing the splint, she needs to have strength 15, and she doesn't because she's strength drained. So she should have reduced speed, but she still has speed 30 feet. And I don't think a halfling can move that fast with heavy armour, especially with the strength drain. Also, because of the heavy armour, she should have a disadvantage on dexterity checks, which isn't listed in the skills, or listed anywhere about the disadvantage checks. There's also the fact she's got a heavy crossbow, which obviously is a heavy weapon, as it's seen in the title, and so small creatures should have disadvantage when using heavy weapons. And halflings are small, although I see it says medium humanoid over here. So Harriet might just be a very big halfling to the point she's medium size, so she doesn't get that. But I more need to check what the veteran stat block looks like if I've got it in previous issue, because they might have just copied all that over and then just listed it as a medium halfling, whether or not you can have medium halflings. And then we get to Visera, the humanoid, dragonborn, neutral evil wizard. She's a necromancer, but I don't really know what type of class it is unless it's like a subtype of wizard, because she's got mage hand, bestow curse, and mage armor spells, as well as the web and ray of sickness that are listed here. But they're not in the spell book I got, so unless they're higher than level 1. But they might not be, because Rare Sickness can be cast using spells of 2nd or higher for increased damage. It doesn't say that she's got any higher level spells though, so we just assume Rare Sickness is cast as a 1st level spell. It's also a shame that for a character specific stat block, we haven't actually been given any languages, just as languages, any 4 languages. Which is a bit odd. I know she's going to at least speak common, otherwise how would she be selling her trinkets? And then we just move on to the Shadow, who's another type of undead we get to go with all the undead we've had so far. There's been one at least every 2 issues, I think. And all that wonderful stat block it has there. As you can see, it mostly just sneaks around and tries to drain strength from characters. Successfully draining all the strength out of the character will turn them into a shadow. That's the encounter. All done, but now let's move on to the other stuff. Starting off with the map. And we've got a nice little outdoorsy map here. No features on it. And if we turn it over, we get a nice little indoor dungeon map, which is quite nice to have all of our encounters. If there are any inside, we've got a grid now, so we can set up the characters and we can set up walls and whatever else. It's just a shame it didn't have the hamlet or village set up on one side. I guess you could make a village set up on this grass, but there was nothing in the issue, so I don't know how the hamlet should look. So I've got to kind of just describe it myself, I guess, which is a bit lazy of me, a bit lazy of them, a bit lazy of both of us. I don't want to describe it, I just want a map so I can just point to where my adventures are going to go, or do a really rubbish drawing. But we've got our map, and now we get to check out our new character sheets for our Dragonborn, Barbarian, Karkaroff, Hiverax. So then we get a nice updated character sheet. And there's nothing actually I can see wrong with these character sheets for once, you know. They even, not only are they not incorrect, they don't not match up in any way, which is very nice to see, especially when they've got these nice little new scan me up there to create a character and play with digital sheet. And they've now changed it so simple and martial weapons, all weapons, which clears up the confusion I had with Irina when I talked about it previously, where it doesn't say it and it didn't list martial. They've also now listed all the weapons as martial weapons as well, like the Great Axe. They put the martial tag back in, but then just said all weapons anyway, so that clears everything up. There we go, that's issue 13. Expert roleplay tips. They were quite useful. I like the map. As I've said, I'd rather had an actual map of a village, but now I've got an actual play map rather than just moving standees around a map I've drawn by hand. And our Barbarian capture sheet. So I'm liking all that. And then we've got number 14 coming out. And this gold, that's annoying me. But also you can see we're getting some more standees. So our two new adventurers in the last couple of issues have now got their own standees to use. And so we'll be able to place them on the map like normal. Although, annoyingly, there's quite a big one I can see there, so it's not going to fit in the tin I currently store them with, unless I take them apart every time. But I don't really want to do that. We'll see how I feel. Anyway, if you're still watching, there'll be links popping up to follow about the magazines or the series when the video's available. Otherwise, thanks for watching. I hope to catch you soon.